everybody, I'm Chris Massey, and welcome to the Chris Massey Football Show here on the American Hearts Radio Network. We're coming to you live tonight from our Chisel Multimedia studios here in Smyrna, Georgia. Now, most of you know me from the Chris Massey Music Show. The Chris Massey Music Show will return in March. From now till the end of football season, we're going to be here on the third Monday of every month, bringing you the Chris Massey Football Show. Well, I got to tell you, if you're a football fan like me, you are counting the days down. That's right. We are less than 2 weeks from the kickoff of college football and less than 3 weeks from the kickoff of the NFL season. I tell you what, the older I get, that time between the Super Bowl and the first whistle gets longer and longer, and it has been really long if you are a Falcon fan. After having to watch them blow that big fourth quarter New England Patriots in the Super Bowl, I am ready to see them get out there and get this new season started and forget about what happened before. Here on this show, we're going to talk about the big three in the state, which would be the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, the University of Georgia Bulldogs, and the Atlanta Falcons, and some of the other smaller schools may get some kudos as well. But due to time restraints, we're basically going to have to stick to those three schools. All right. When we come back, we will take a look at the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.
Hey everybody, Johnny Manzan here. Just got through listening to Chris Massey's new CD, Tuckerville. You guys should go check it out. Great record, great CD, should I say, or record, whichever one you want to talk about or say these days. But I still call them records. Anyway, check it out. Great one. God bless. See you soon. Rock and roll.
Lights shine on me. I hope it be. By now thought I'd be somewhere I may never be. And I know it's hard to think that somehow I can still believe. The dream that I've been dreaming, it comes true. With every song I sing, every song I sing, every song I sing.
All right, we're back. We're back. Paul Johnson is starting his 10th season with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And this year he is bringing back probably the most experienced Yellow Jack squad he has had in his tenure at Georgia Tech. They are experienced everywhere except at quarterback. That's right. Justin Thomas is gone. Justin Thomas, in my opinion, was the best quarterback under Paul Johnson to run that triple option attack, and he is out of here. So who's going to quarterback the Yellow Jackets when they open up the season against Tennessee in one of the kickoff games Labor Day weekend? Well, as of just a couple days ago, Paul Johnson couldn't name a starter. There's 4 candidates. Now that means one of two things. These 4 guys are so good that he can't pick the starter, or they're mediocre or bad, and he hasn't been able to find the best one. My guess is in that first game that's going to be on national TV against Tennessee, he's going to go with experience, and it'll be redshirt junior Matthew Jordan, who backed up Justin Thomas. He will be running that triple option attack for Georgia Tech as they take on the Tennessee Volunteers. But the Georgia Tech got some bad news just over the weekend. Dedrick Mills, I believe I said his name right, the running back, has not only been kicked off the team, he has been dismissed from Georgia Tech, kicked out of school. So somebody is going to have to step up in that running back position. Now, if Georgia Tech can get some good quarterback play and the running backs come through, the Jackets could have a promising season. Last year they were 9-4, and they bounced back from that disappointing 3-9 season, which came after they went 11-3 with an Orange Bowl victory over the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So optimism is high at Georgia Tech, but they do have a rough schedule. It's going to be tough. You know, you got ACC games against Clemson, North Carolina, and Virginia Tech. Out-of-conference games, 2 SEC opponents, Tennessee, and, of course, the big game against the University of Georgia. Now, one of the things that happens every year at Georgia Tech is people want to ask the question, if the Jackets have a bad season, will Paul Johnson be on the hot seat? Well, that's hard to say. He's had some bad seasons at Tech. He's had a lot of mediocre seasons. He's had 4 seasons where they've won over 9 games, and he's beaten the Bulldogs 3 times in 10 years. But most importantly, 2 of the last 3. 2 of the last 3, the Yellow Jackets have come out victorious. Of course, those games were in Athens, so they'll be looking to win one on the flats this year. If you look at the coaches that Georgia Tech has had since Bobby Dodd left in the 60s, coaches that have been successful, you're talking about guys like Bud Carson, Pepper Rogers, Bill Curry, Bobby Ross, who of course got a share of the national championship when he was at Georgia Tech, George O'Leary. You look at these guys, and Paul Johnson stacks up with these guys. He's as good as any of these coaches. The difference between Paul Johnson and these other guys is though Paul Johnson wants to stay at Georgia Tech. And that's got to count for something. Even the most avid Yellow Jacket fan would have to agree that the Georgia Tech job is a stepping stone job. So if you get rid of Paul Johnson and you bring in a hotshot coach, he's going to come in here, and if he's successful after 2 or 3 seasons, he's going to leave. And where is that going to leave you? One of the biggest complaints about Georgia Tech, though, is the recruiting. And I am going to be critical of them tonight as well. Georgia Tech, I looked in the paper when the recruiting was going on, and they were going against kids that Furman wanted, or Cincinnati wanted, or East Carolina wanted, or Central Florida wanted. This makes no sense to me. Georgia Tech should be going after kids that Georgia is looking at. South Carolina, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida State. These schools are only allowed 85 scholarships. They're not going to get all these players. Yet Paul Johnson takes a different route. And it's very rare that he has a top 50 recruiting class. I had a fan in the game last year tell me that if he could get a top 10 class, he'd be unstoppable. And there may be some truth to that. So anyway, Georgia Tech gets it all started Labor Day weekend against Tennessee. Then they will host Jacksonville State. And then the ACC opener against Tennessee at Bobby Dodd Stadium. And these 3 games, you're going to get a good idea of what Georgia Tech is made of. All right, when we come back, we'll take a look at Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs. We'll be right back. All right, hey, I'm Chris Massey from the Chris Massey Music Show on the American Hearts Radio Network. If you would like to have your own WebTV show here on the American Hearts Radio and you think you got what it takes to be on the air, contact me, Chris Massey, on Facebook. You just friend me on Facebook and send me a message, and I'll hook you up with Mike Aloia at the home office in Jacksonville, Florida, and see what we can do about getting you on the air. All right. The University of Georgia will kick off their season Labor Day weekend with a 6 o'clock kickoff at Sanford Stadium against Appalachian State. Now listen, if you're playing a lesser opponent at the first of the year, Appalachian State is not who you want to play. I don't know whose idea it was to put these guys on the schedule. Last year, they took Tennessee into the 4th quarter, with Tennessee only winning that game 20-13, and we all remember years ago when they pulled the big upset, beating Michigan in the Big House. So, University of Georgia, you cannot overlook Appalachian State, but they should be able to win this game handily. Now, every year at Georgia, the expectations are high, and this year is no different. It's Kirby Smart's 2nd year. Let's take a look at some of the coaches that Georgia's had, what happened in their 2nd year. Jim Donnan, his 2nd season, the Bulldogs went 10-2, had a big win over Florida, and finished in the top 10. Mark Richt, his 2nd season, Georgia won the SEC championship, went 13-1, beat Florida State in the Sugar Bowl, and finished number 3. So this year could be a good year for Kirby Smart. It won't be new to him this year. It will also not be new to Jason Eason. Jacob Eason, who was the freshman quarterback last year, coming into his sophomore year. Now, Jacob has got some big weapons on offense. To start, he's got 2 NFL running backs, and Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. And when I say NFL running backs, I really mean it. If these guys would have came out early last year, they would both be on an NFL roster right now. Lorenzo Carter returned on defense. He likely also would have made an NFL roster. He's got Isaac Nada, a future top 10 draft pick, in my opinion, at tight end, and Riley Ridley, who's at wide receiver, who showed glimpses last year that he could be the man and the deep threat that the Bulldogs want. So if these guys can all step it up on offense, what could be the problem? The offensive line. That's what nobody is sure about. Are these young guys going to come together? Are they going to gel? And if they can do that, and Jacob Eason has the season that is expected, Georgia could have a very prolific offense. On defense, they're going to be bigger, they're going to be stronger, they're going to be faster, and they're going to be in their second season of Kirby Smart's scheme. And I expect the Georgia defense to get much better than it was last year. Now, the key thing for Georgia this year, of course, every year, are the conference games. I was talking with a buddy of mine a week or so ago, and he said he thought Georgia would go 10-2 and win the SEC East. He had them losing at Tennessee and losing to Florida. Now, Georgia can go 10-2 and not win the SEC East. And what he said, I think, if they lose to Tennessee and Florida, they're not going to win the East. If that happens, that means that Florida has to lose 3 conference games. Tennessee has to lose 3, which could likely happen. But Florida losing 3, I don't think so. Georgia can lose 2 games, but one of them cannot be to the University of Florida. They are going to have that tiebreaker. Now, they could either go 11-1, or they could lose to someone else. Now, who else would they lose to? Let's take a look at the other conference games they got. Of course, in their division, they've got Missouri, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, South Carolina. And over in the West, they're playing Mississippi State. And, of course, they've got Auburn and Vanderbilt. Okay, now, all of these games are at home with the exception of Vanderbilt and Auburn. In fact, Georgia's season is going to come down to how well they play on their road games. Let's take a look at who they got. The second week of the season, the Bulldogs go to South Bend and play the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. This is only the second meeting between the University of Georgia and Notre Dame. In fact, the only meeting was in the national championship game in 1980. This game will be broadcast on Saturday night on NBC. It's going to be a big deal. The Bulldogs need to look good that night, and they got a big stage to impress. They have to go to Tennessee. Tennessee has had our number lately. But you would think after the way they stole the game last year in Athens, the Bulldogs will be ready to play that game. Then they have to go to Auburn. Always tough. They have to go to Jacksonville and play the Gators, a place where they can't win. I mean, let's face it, Georgia cannot beat Florida consistently. Ray Goff couldn't do it. Jim Donnan couldn't do it. Mark Richt couldn't do it. Kirby Smart lost his first game there. If Georgia is going to in the East, they have to start beating the Gators, and they need to start doing it this year. And then the last regular season game of the year, they are on the road against Georgia Tech, a place that the Bulldogs have not lost going all the way back to 1999 when George O'Leary was the coach when Tech was on a three-game run where they beat the Bulldogs 3 straight times. So we'll see what happens. Georgia opens the season with Appalachian State. Then they travel to Notre Dame, and then they come home for a game against Samford, and then after that, it's serious business for the rest of the season. All right, when we come back, we'll take a look at your Atlanta Falcons.
Be a part of our family, bringing the hearts of America together. Please contact us. We thank you for your support. Become a part of our family of supporters today. Call 904-229-8150. That's 904-229-8150. Call today at 904-229-8150. Please visit us at www.americanheartsradio.com.
Okay. All right, we are back. We are back. Now, this is without a doubt the most anticipated Atlanta Falcons season in Falcons history. I've been a Falcons fan since 1970. I went to my first game when I was 8 years old, and expectations have never been higher than they are right now. Now, the Falcons did make it to the Super Bowl in 1999. They came back that year, and it was over before it got started. The first game against Dallas on Monday Night Football, Jamal Anderson tore his ACL, and it was downhill after that. I don't even think they had a winning season that year, and they did not make the playoffs. That is certainly not what people are expecting to happen this year. You've got Matt Ryan, who was the MVP last season. You got Julio Jones, arguably the best wide receiver in football. No, I'm going to go ahead and say it. He is the best wide receiver in football. They've also got a very talented core of receivers. Devontae Freeman, fresh off a brand new contract, will be there. Their first round draft pick, Tack McKinley, super fast off of the edge. He's going to be in there on those nickel defensive sets. He is expected to make an impact. Vic Beasley, who led the NFL in sacks last year. Deion Jones, middle linebacker from LSU. This guy is a monster. In fact, one news agency said that the Atlanta Falcons have the most talented roster in the NFL. How about that? So you're asking, can the Falcons come back, have a winning season, make the playoffs, and win the Super Bowl? That's what everybody wants. Anything for that, it's going to be a disappointment. Well, let's just take a look at that, for instance. There have been 51 Super Bowls. The Atlanta Falcons will be the 52nd team in NFL history to start the season as the Super Bowl loser. Now, out of the previous 51, how many times do you think a team has lost a Super Bowl and came back and won? How many? Matt, how many would you say? Give me a number.
25.
25. That's way too high. In 51 Super Bowls, 51 teams that have lost, only one has come back from a Super Bowl loss and won the Super Bowl. You have to go all the way back to 1971 to Super Bowl VI between the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins were defeated. They came back in 1972 and had the storied undefeated season, beat the Washington in Super Bowl VII. So not only has one team done it, but the team that done it is arguably the greatest NFL team ever. I mean, they're the only team that's ran the table. I guess that would make them the best. So it is going to be an uphill battle for Atlanta. And last year, Atlanta dodged the injury bug just about the whole season. Just about the whole season. Now, the Falcons, not only do they not need to have any injuries, they need other teams to get banged up a little bit. That Green Bay team that came into Atlanta for the playoffs, they were the walking dead. I mean, those guys were banged up something awful, and it showed on the field. The Falcons were able to get home field advantage in the playoffs. And think about this. Going into the last week of the season, the Falcons did not have home field advantage. What happened? The Arizona Cardinals, a 10-point underdog, went to Seattle and won, giving Atlanta the first round home playoff game. And then what happens? The number 1 seed Dallas Cowboys get beat by the Green Bay Packers. The number 1 seed makes it to the championship game 68% of the time. Did not happen. Falcons got 2 games, made it to the Super Bowl, and everything went their way until the fourth quarter. Until the fourth quarter. And I'm still asking myself, like a lot of you are asking yourself, why? Why in God's name, after Julio Jones made one of the greatest catches in Super Bowl history, you've got the best field goal kicker in the NFL, why didn't you line up, run some clock, run it 3 times, and have him kick the field goal, making it a 2-possession game, making it impossible. I mean impossible for New England to win. They would have had to have scored quick, and then they would have had to have got an onside kick, and then they would have had to have kicked the field goal and made it just to tie the game. But we know what happened. We know what happened. Nobody wants to talk about it. Dan Quinn's trying not to answer questions about it. All the reporters are asking about it. So hopefully once the season starts, that will be put to rest and we can focus on this season. They open up the season in Chicago against the Chicago Bears. Right after that, The Green Bay Packers come to Atlanta, and let me tell you what, they are going to be looking to put a whooping on the Falcons. After that, the Falcons will go to Detroit and play the Lions. Did you know that in the season series between the Falcons and the Lions, dating all the way back to the first season in 1966, the Detroit Lions have a double-digit lead in that series. So Detroit always gives us trouble. Mercedes-Benz Dome will be open for business. I don't think they can get the top open on this stadium, which means that me, Chris Massey, will not be going to any games, just like I didn't go to any games at the Georgia Dome. If I want to watch a game inside, I can do it at my house. As soon as they can get the top open on that thing, I will be going down there to a game. But to be honest with you, it doesn't look like it's going to happen this season. What an embarrassment for Arthur Blank and the Atlanta Falcons. All the other teams that have retractable domes don't seem to have a problem with it. But, of course, here in Atlanta, we can't get it going. You know, just like the only ice storm that's ever happened during a Super Bowl happened when it was here in Atlanta. The only time an NFL player was ever accused of murder on a Super Bowl weekend happened here in Atlanta. And the only team to blow a 25-point lead in the fourth quarter in the Super Bowl happened here in Atlanta. What can I tell you? Folks, we are due. We are due to win a Super Bowl here in Atlanta, and we've got a really good shot to do that this year. I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but we are certainly in the conversation. The schedule's tough. You know, we've got to play the Bucks, the Panthers, and the Saints twice. We were able to go 5-1 against those guys last year. We got the Packers, we got the Cowboys, we got the Seahawks, and we got the Patriots. And those are four teams that will all be in Super Bowl conversation. Miami is going to be a team. Minnesota is a good team. Detroit gives us fits. The Jets and Buffalo. So, we got a full. It's going to be interesting to see how the Falcons pan out. All right, we'll come back. We're going to talk a little more college football, and I'm going to give you my sports commentary. We'll be right back.
Serving Atlanta since 1998, Massey Gutters understands the challenges specific to our area. Massey Gutters is familiar with all aspects of gutters and roofing. We use only the highest quality materials. With our fully trained and professional staff, you are guaranteed to get quality service and work. References available upon request. Call us today for a free estimate. 404-314-6800. Again, that's 404-314-6800. Call Massey Gutters today. 404-314-6800.
All right, we're back. This Labor Day weekend, I will be up in the mountains with my wife's family. This is something that we do every year. And my brother-in-law, my father-in-law, we like to sit around and watch some college football that weekend. And boy, do we have a dandy, the first weekend of college football this year. Of course, I'm talking about the big Alabama-Florida State game. Now, Alabama is a 7-point favorite in this game. So a lot of people are not giving the Seminoles respect. I can't wait to see this game. And Nick Saban going against Jimbo Fisher. And Alabama, I tell you, you never want to play Alabama, but you really don't want to play them the first game after they lost the national championship in the last few minutes. I think Nick Saban is a man on a mission, and I look for them to be very strong this year. I am picking Alabama not only to win the game, I'm also picking them to cover that spread. Now it's time for my sports commentary. This will be what we'll be doing on the end of the show every month. Well, I'll give you a commentary on something that's going on in sports. Tonight's commentary is on SunTrust Park. Now, I went to my first Braves game in 1969 at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. It was a twilight doubleheader against the Chicago Cubs. I went with my mother and my grandfather. We were sitting behind the first base dugout, and Tommy Aaron, Hank Aaron's brother, was up at the plate, and he had a foul ball. We stood up, and it landed in my mother's seat. Still the only ball that we've ever caught at a Braves game. In 1997, my youngest daughter, Rachel, was 3, and I took her to her first Braves game at Turner Field, which was the first home Sunday afternoon game, oddly enough, against the Chicago Cubs. 2 weeks ago, I went to SunTrust Park for the very first time. and my little girl is 23 years old now, and we went to the game. And I've got to tell you, this is one fan that is not interested in driving to Cobb County to watch the Braves play baseball. Since the conception of baseball, it has always been played in urban areas. And to this day, that is, for the most part, that is where it was played. You know, when I was a kid and we would go to the Braves game, one of the great things about it was we were going downtown. We were going down to the city, something that we never did, you know. And I'm sure a lot of kids in the suburbs don't go down there now. There's just something exciting about sitting in the stadium and seeing the skyline of Atlanta or being around the buzz of the city. Now, you drive to the suburbs of Cobb County, and there's all kinds of people out there that'll tell you it's better than Turner Field, and then the next thing they tell you is how great the restaurants are outside. Really? The ballpark is better because they have restaurants outside? Come on. Come on. Inside the park, it's not much difference to Turner Field. The things that I noticed was, number one, the outfield lighting was way better, and the skyline of Atlanta was missing. I am disappointed in the Atlanta Braves. I'm disappointed in the city of Atlanta that they let the Braves move to Cobb County. See, here's the thing. Turner Field was not built for the Braves. It was built for the Olympics. And if Atlanta wouldn't have got the Olympics in 1996, they'd have kept on playing in Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, which would have been all right by me. I mean, look, that's the place where Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's home run record, where Pete Rose's 44-game hitting streak came to an end, and a place where the Braves played in their first World Series, and a place where they won the World Series championship. Now that stadium's gone. Now Turner Field is no longer home of the Braves. And now the city of Atlanta is gone. It's in Cobb County. And I'm sorry. I'm just not interested in going. Now my daughter likes to go to a game every year, so we'll probably go. If somebody calls me and they got free tickets, well, you know, I may do that too. But the days of me looking on the calendar and saying, look at here, the last week of August, the Dodgers are coming to town. I need to get tickets for that game. Those days are gone. They just are. Now, but there was one big winner in all of this. And who was that? Georgia State. That's right, the Georgia State Panthers. They're going to be playing football in Turner Field and baseball too. And that, my friends, is something that I might actually go to. Till next time, we'll see you the third Monday in September. Here are my predictions. When we come back, all three teams would have played 3 games. Georgia Tech will be 2-1. The Georgia Bulldogs will be 3-0. And the Atlanta Falcons will be 2-1. So join me next month to see how I did. We'll see you next time.